Hi, welcome to my vlog. My vlog's going to be talking a lot about head injury and living after a traumatic brain injury. And I've been meaning to do this for a really long time, and I feel like now is the right time to start. I've just had a really bad week, a bad relapse week, and at times like this I really find that it helps listening to other people's stories and reading about how other people cope and their symptoms. So I've decided to just take the plunge and start. So a little bit about what happened to me. I had a snowboarding accident in 2011. In fact, 8 years ago yesterday. That's interesting. I had a 7-month-old son who is now 8, and I had my first afternoon off from him, and I decided it would be a great idea to go snowboarding for the first time in a couple of years, because obviously I'd been pregnant and then I'd had him. My best friend and River's godmum looked after him for the afternoon, and I had maybe 2 hours, and I thought, I'm just going to pop out to the local dome. I'm going to ride for an hour and then I'm going to come home. And I rode for an hour and then had kind of a freak accident, really. I was going a little bit too fast. The conditions were really bad, very icy. I hit a patch of ice, in fact. Went up, did a 180 and landed directly on my head. The impact of that broke my spine in 2 places. So I broke L1 and L2. And luckily I had a helmet on, or else I wouldn't be here talking now to you like this. When I had the accident, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know immediately that I'd really done anything at all. In fact, I had the accident, and you know it's bad when you fall, you look around, and the entire slope, instructors and students are just still, just looking, waiting to see if you'll move. And I remember thinking, that's a bit of an overreaction. Like, I'm all right. I looked at the clock. I thought, I've got 5 minutes left. I've got a baby to go home to. I don't know when I'll be able to come again. I need to make the most of this. So I got up and I went and did another run. I don't know how I did that. Adrenaline, endorphins, our body's survival mechanism is incredible. So I did another run, got off my board, came out into the warm changing area. And when the heat hit me, the concussion hit me, like immediately. It was like going from being completely sober to being the most drunk I've ever been. Instantly. It was weird and certainly confusing. I managed to get to my locker. I sat down, and then I couldn't really move properly. I think the staff realised something bad was going on. They came out. They'd been told about the accident that had just happened. They checked me over. They called an ambulance for the concussion, and I remember being quite mad, just saying, I don't have time for an ambulance. I've got a baby to go home to. My little girl was 5 at the time. I needed to go home. I was a single parent, and I needed to get back to my children. So I remember saying, I don't have time for an ambulance. Obviously, they called the ambulance anyway. The ambulance came. I managed to, with assistance, get into the ambulance by myself. But once I was in the ambulance, I think that's when the adrenaline wore off. They gave me gas and air. They stretchered me. I couldn't walk by the time we got to the hospital. And I remember bits and pieces out of it. I think my son's dad, who I'm very good friends with, came to the hospital. I remember him being there. I guess they did x-rays, because I remember them coming to tell me, you've broken your back, you've broken your spine in 2 places. And even then I said, can I go home? And obviously not. So I spent, I don't even know, this is the thing with my head injury, I'm not even sure. I think I spent maybe a couple of weeks in hospital, which was awful, in a cast. I had psychologists come and see me to tell me that I might not walk again, that with my brain injury I was very lucky because I didn't have to have surgery. I also didn't have to have surgery on my spine, which was incredible. So the sheaths around my spinal cord had remained intact. So I was lucky, really had a lucky escape. Psychologists came to the ward because when they told me that I might not be able to walk again, I just laughed and said, that's not my life story. That's not what's going to happen. So they thought I needed psychological help, which, yeah, maybe they were right. But actually, I think I just had a really positive mindset. And I really believe that our thoughts and the way we think and feel about things can affect us physically dramatically. So they came and tried to explain to me that I might not walk again. I probably wouldn't work again. I certainly wouldn't be able to do my job as a photographer that I'd been doing for 15 years now, 20 years. I wouldn't be able to raise my children by myself anymore. I was quite active with my children. We would go on trips all the time and go to festivals, go on road trips, just the three of us. And it was amazing. They told me I wouldn't be able to do that anymore. I didn't believe them. I didn't take that on board at all. I got sent home in a full cast, not a cast, in a brace. And I was pretty much bedridden for maybe 3 or 4 months. My best friend and children's godmum, Lucy, was around every single day. I was very lucky. Social services paid for her to look after the children during the day. My son's dad then pretty much moved in, slept in his room on his floor, so he would go to work. Lucy would come look after the children. He would come home from work and kind of take over and do the night shift, and it was like that for maybe 3 or 4 months. I then spent 4 years as an outpatient at the brain rehabilitation unit in Whalley Drive in Milton Keynes, which was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. I had the most incredible neuropsychologist who worked with me on the brain and neural pathways and really sorted out my entire life and all the issues that had been holding me back psychologically that were then going to impact on me with a brain injury. She worked on everything with me and it was quite incredible. I had a lot of occupational therapy. It took me about 2 years to learn how to go shopping again, how to cook again. I've always cooked from scratch. I don't cook anything out of a packet, so that was really tough for me. And the other biggest change that happened to me was I started having seizures, really violent seizures actually. So I was back in and out of hospital quite a lot in the first year with seizures, and I also gave myself, I probably gave myself 10 concussions in my first 6 months after the brain injury, because my proprioception, my spatial awareness is really quite broken. And I hadn't learned how to cope with it at that stage, so I was constantly walking or almost running at full speed into things and just bang, knocking myself out cold, which I still do occasionally. And in fact, that's what's led to my relapse this week. Last Saturday, I'm not even sure what I was doing, but I think I was bending down to open a drawer or something, and I think at full speed I've headbutted the wardrobe, which is a very solid wooden wardrobe, and knocked myself out cold. I had a big bump on my head here. I woke up to my partner packing me in ice, and I had blood everywhere, and I don't remember what happened, but I knocked myself out. And these constant new traumas definitely impact my recovery. 8 years later, I'm definitely still in recovery. And it's really tough, actually, to deal with that. And it's really tough to deal with the fact that I'm not the same person I was before. I'm not as capable as I was before. I was a straight A student. I was, when I had my daughter, I was studying a prestigious degree in London as a single parent and commuting, and there was nothing I couldn't do, literally nothing I couldn't do. So having this and having to learn that I am not that person anymore has been really, really tough. And I want to vlog quite regularly, so I'm not going to talk for too much longer now. It's more a bit of an introduction to my story, and as I think more clearly about things, I'll be able to be a little bit less waffly, I guess, and You know, there's a lot of things that I do that I'm going to talk about, just daily things. I have an awful lot of medical appointments. I still have seizures all the time, still knock myself out all the time. I really struggle with help because I'm not disabled enough. You know, if I was in a wheelchair, it would be very clear and I would have a carer full time. I'm not, so sometimes I can be quite high functioning, which means I slip through the hoops with care sometimes, but I'll go into that in more detail at another time because that's quite an emotional area of this for me. I'm looking forward to talking about this more, actually. I'm looking forward to this being a place where I can talk about my experiences and talk about living with a brain injury and how it impacts me, how I cope or don't cope with it. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from other people, you know, hearing how you guys deal with brain injury, or maybe you're supporting somebody through a brain injury. I know this must be really tough for my partner, who is my absolute rock. I don't know where I would be without him. Sorry, my puppy is scratching at the door to come in. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear from people if you've got a brain injury, or maybe you're a care provider for somebody, or even just a friend of somebody, or you're just curious, or perhaps you've had some other kind of life-changing injury or illness, and you know the psychological effects of that. The mental aspect of it is just as important as the physical aspect. So I feel like I've probably been a little bit waffly in this video, but it's a good place to start. I'm glad that I've got this platform now, and I'm going to talk quite regularly about the things that I go through. Thank you for watching my video, and I'm going to post more, so check back. I'm not sure how often I'm going to post. I guess that depends on how my head is, or what's happening, or if there's anything happening. Yeah.